welcome to the June 2020 Traffic Commission meeting. Good to see everybody. We haven't met in a few months. For those in the public, this is the first time that we've met since the start of COVID, so it's our first meeting over Zoom. So bear with us if we have any technicalities, but I think we should be okay. The first item on our agenda today is to approve the minutes of the February 2020 commission meeting.
I motion we approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Motion carries. Item number 2 is a request by Miss Melissa Ponce of Alcott Street on behalf of her husband, Rinaldo Ponce, to restrict one parking space in front of 49 Alcott Street to handicap parking only. Melissa, I do see you there, so if you want to speak.
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a way to make a space in front of my house a handicap designated spot for him. We do have off-street parking. However, we recently had the property surveyed, and there is a 12.7% incline in the back, so it is very difficult for him to do that on a daily basis, especially as the weather gets bad. And we've made it work so far. It hasn't been, in the past it wasn't too bad, but recently with a lot more people home and the traffic on Alcott Street becoming a little bit more crowded, he's been unable to find spots in front of the house, and it's been a little challenging with that. So wanted to see if it was possible to make that a handicap designated spot for him, especially with us hopefully having a family soon. It'll be really dangerous with him going up and down the hill with children.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public speaking on this issue? Sergeant Sampson?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chief. I spoke to Ms. Punt, and I also went by 49 Alcott Street, and certainly, you know, based on the driveway, the steepness of the driveway, Melissa, that also appears to be a shared driveway. Is that correct?
Yes, the apartment next door to me, we share the driveway. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, you know, based on those factors, and it looks like they use the front door as a primary entrance into the home, there is space in front of the house for a handicap spot. I would be in support of that.
I agree as well. Anyone else looking to speak from the board?
Chief, I'll just ask a quick question. I certainly don't want to get into your personal medical records or anything like that, but could you just in a general sense describe what the handicap that your father has? You know, is it associated with walking or?
Yeah, it's my husband. He's paraplegic.
I'm sorry, husband.
That's okay. He's paraplegic. He's handicapped. He's wheelchair bound, so he's
Gotcha.
unable to walk.
Okay, thank you. Chief, I guess with that, I'd make a motion. We approve the handicap spot at the address as listed.
I would second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3 is a request by Watertown Public Schools Superintendent Deanna Galston to modify the traffic pattern and drop-off pickup areas in the vicinity of the Hosmer School to accommodate construction of a new Hosmer School building. Superintendent?
Excellent. Thank you so much. So what you have before you is the work of several individuals, the Hosmer School Administration, along with in consultation with the police around, and our OPM, our Owners Project Managers, around what will be safest for our Watertown Public School students at the Hosmer while the new Hosmer is being constructed. If you are not aware, the formerly known as entrance is actually no longer going to be there within a couple of weeks. And the full entrance to the Hosmer Elementary School is shifting pretty much on the opposite end of the school. And as such, the pickup and drop off is going to be dramatically different. And so what we've proposed here in this plan, and I'll let the other people who have been really part of this speak to it as well, is the way that we feel will be most safe for our students in terms of being picked up or dropped off around the Hosmer, given the fact that we're changing the entrance of the school completely. You'll also notice that we have the difference in terms of the bus drop off. For those of you who don't know the demographics of the Hosmer, we approximately next year will have around 570 students. About 120 of those do take the bus. The rest of them are a combination of walkers or being dropped off by parents. So it is very busy in terms of that pickup and drop off. And given the fact now, again, that it's going to be on busier streets, that we feel that a one-way traffic pattern will be very helpful to ensure the safety of our students. That's the most important factor here. So that's just why it is that we think that this is going to be best for our kids.
Okay. Did you have anyone else from the schools that wanted to speak? Or the project committee?
Chief, this is Vivian Verbedian from the Owners Project Management, Hill International. If I may request permission to share my screen, I can broadcast the plan that we have presented and walk you through any questions and our request.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. So as superintendent mentioned, where this is the portion of the school that we intend to demolish in the near future, the primary school will become what is known as the Z-shaped building. We have identified a few key areas for entrance, primarily here with the asterisks in purple. These areas for the kindergartners, these for the other grade levels. We have requested for the safety of the students and the bus turnoff for these areas to become a one-way designation. We are not necessarily, married to the idea of them being one way throughout the entire day. We are open to the notion of them becoming one way between the hours of 7 and 9 for the morning period, and then 2 to 4 in the afternoon. But since this is going to be a very busy area and the entire traffic pattern and entrance to the school has shifted, we're requesting for those period of times, if not all day, be one way for the safety of the students as they cross the street in order to get into the entrances.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. I don't know if Aaron Moulton, the principal, just wants to kind of just describe a little bit more which students are going into those entrances specifically.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So this area here where you see the red rectangle, this is where the bus would be coming in. So the bus would be coming right in here and dropping off those approximately 120 students who'd be using this entrance. Kindergartners would all be coming directly into their classrooms. Thank you, Vivian. Into these 4 asterisk doors. Students in all of the other grades, so the remaining close to 400 kids would be coming in through these 3, actually these 2 main entrances, not even the middle one, just this one here and this one here. So our hope is that this blue zone here would be our drop-off zone. So parents driving their kids to school would pull over quickly, let kids off on the right side of the street, and then proceed from Chauncey to Boylston and then out.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the schools? Vivian, do you know how that screen comes down?
No, sir. This is all that we are presenting. We do not. Do you want me to stop sharing?
Oh yeah, I just want to get back to the main screen if I
Sure.
can. All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone from I see some faces maybe from the public that would like to speak on this? Anyone?
Hi, this is Anne Marie Clinton.
Okay, Anne Marie Clunan. go
Hi.
ahead.
And I know that some of my fellow neighbors are also on the call. So many of us have participated actively in the school building committee meetings, and we've asked throughout the last year or two when we could talk about some of the details in regards to the traffic flow, how it was going to impact the neighbors, and really have an opportunity to dialogue in detail about this so that, you know, it didn't get to this point of the traffic commission and it's being submitted without having our opinion and to work something out. And I don't feel, as many of us have talked about, that was granted. And we went to a presentation on the 18th where the traffic presentation was really about the one way for the construction and a proposal to, this proposal that will impact our lives in the neighborhood and our access to our own property was not put on the agenda. And so it came as a little bit of a surprise that Angie shared that this was on the agenda, and I'm glad that I could block time out of my work scheduled for today to participate. And I wrote a letter and I shared that with Angie and others as well. But, you know, we've lived on this street for 27 years, just about. And the workflow and with the traffic and with parents coming down here and business traffic and school traffic has always impacted our driveways, our ability to mobilize out of our driveways, having people impact our properties with pulling in our driveways. And now the proposal that came out was to block our access, or people that we may want to come to our homes, their access, during the hours of 7 a.m. and 3:30 in the afternoon. And so as I responded back in my note, my husband in my note, that, you know, it's always historically been when the crossing guard was there and they shut down the street for other than bus and, you know, teachers, other than, you know, people that had business to do at our homes during very specific hours. And buses don't come down the street at 7 a.m. And so I would question why it has to start at 7 a.m. and go until 9. I get they're there until about from 8 to 9 o'clock roughly. But then 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the buses typically aren't here again at 4 o'clock, but this is the first time we're hearing that there's even entertainment to go back to what it was, where the hours that were posted on the end of the street. And I will pause for a minute and let others weigh in, but I have listed out some of the concerns in that quick response. But I feel that this neighborhood will already be impacted significantly with the construction and the workflow, and that we should have the ability to be considered when the decision is being made. So thank you.
Any other from the public from that neighborhood like to speak?
Yes. My name is Maureen Foley. I'm at 10 Winthrop Street. I also feel that I don't want to queue up behind buses and cars in order for me to go less than 150 feet to Mount Auburn Street to go to work. And also, what is the probability of me renting my apartment and telling people, by the way, between this time and this time, you can't really leave your house without being clogged up for 20 minutes. So I feel like my income is being impacted, my way of life is being impacted, and convenience completely. By making my street one way, and it was proposed and originally to be from 7:30, 7 o'clock till I forgot what, till 3:30, long after school ends. So the majority of my day coming home for lunch is going to be impacted. Going to work, it's just not feasible. And that school's been there for over 50 years, and now you're changing everything.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, it's Anne Marie Clunett again.
Okay.
I just want to second one of the comments that Maureen made because I didn't say it out loud again. So by taking a left out of our driveways when, it's for
Amber,
Maureen's
what
150.
street- Can you just, for everybody on here, what street are you on? You on
Oh,
Winthrop?
I'm sorry. We own 1416 Winthrop Street.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I'll use today as a prime example. I had to leave after 7 o'clock from my home
Okay.
to go out for a meeting because I work predominantly from home now. Welcome COVID. And I had to be at a meeting within a certain period of time, leaving after 7 o'clock, which would have put me directly where the buses are with the traffic. And if the bus puts their stop sign up, it basically closes that street down and I would be stuck on Winthrop Street if I couldn't take a right out of my driveway. I had to return back to my home by lunchtime because I wanted to participate in this meeting outside of my meeting site. And I will have to leave again this afternoon. And the same thing could occur, which means it impacts my ability to get to where I need to because I have to wait for buses and wait for that line of traffic that sits outside of my house to go completely around the block. If I can get there, it could take 20 minutes for the buses to load or unload, not more. And I could just take a right and go out to the end of Mount Auburn like I have for the last 26 years. So I just want to second what Maureen was stating there about that bus flow. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other residents wishing to speak?
There's a gentleman, Jack Dargan, I see has his hand up.
Okay, I don't see it. Okay, Jack Dargan, you're on.
Thank you. My wife and I own the property at 4648 Hancock Street.
Okay.
And we're impacted pretty significantly by the construction that's going on. And I just want to say that I think Maureen has brought up a good comment in terms of us having to queue in to leave our houses. That's really kind of a significant issue for us. Also, I understand that the most important issue here is the safety of the children. And in that regard, I think that I really don't know what the best solution to this is. There may not be a good solution, but I think the town should commission a traffic study to figure this out. I think that lay people, in all due respect to Officer Lawn, who's involved in traffic control in the community, I think there are professionals that could speak to this more significantly than we can. We don't understand how traffic works. I just read recently that Waze, the traffic app for directing that people use for getting in and out of the city, are using our neighborhood to bypass the School Street at Mount Auburn Street traffic lights. So, I mean, how do we know how that's going to impact anything? So I really think that we need a professional traffic study to tell us what to do about this. Also, on another note, there is no screening right now presently. There's construction going on, and there's no screening on that construction site. And everyone who comes up and down Winthrop Street and up and down Hancock Street, their eyes are on the construction. No one's looking out for kids at all. That area has to be screened because it'll be a big distraction for people when they're driving, watching construction going on. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that the construction company is required to put screening up. I know they're doing a high school in Arlington, they're doing a high school over in Belmont, and there's 10-foot screening facing all the neighborhoods and all the traffic because it's a hazard. So I think I might be mixing issues here, but they all have to do with the safety of the children. And I really think we need a professional traffic study.
Are there any other residents? Could I just ask this question for the schools? Were the neighbors notified? Was there conversations? Were the abutter notices sent out about this proposal? I just want to grasp, or the traffic commission can grasp the conversations that might have been had or not had. But.
Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Actually, I'd like to have Vivian or Vivian speak to it because Vivian and Mark Sedaris are the ones who called the abutters meeting for the Hosmer on June 18th.
Okay.
And in in the workflow and the discussion, this was absolutely not disclosed to us. And if Angie Koulis, our East End rep, hadn't sent out the notification of this meeting, none of us would have known.
If I may, Chief, the reason for this not being disclosed during the abutters meeting is primarily because it has not been approved as of yet. We're waiting for this meeting, for this ruling. This was a work in progress with the school administration and all of their administrative team to put forth with the busing and how the best way, as well as with the sergeant, in how to best approach this drop off and pickup during construction. Once it is approved, then we would definitely be sharing with the community. But until then, I did not want to disclose anything that potentially wasn't approved or viewed by all members here.
May I step in? This is Maureen Foley again. Well, by the time this was approved, it would have been too late, Vivian. You could have announced that we're thinking about this. This is going to be proposed, but you didn't have the courtesy to inform us. And we've been going to those meetings for 3 years. If it wasn't for our neighborhood, you wouldn't have a brand new school. You'd have bridges going from a new school to an old school. It wouldn't be a beautiful brand new building. So have some respect for the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay. You know, Sergeant Sampson, I'll let you weigh in and then go to the Traffic Commission.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, just a couple of things. I am disappointed to hear that the neighborhood wasn't told about this, because I did sit in on a couple of meetings where these plans were coming forward, and I made that very clear to the development team that you know, that the neighborhood should see this and weigh this in and be prepared for this prior to this meeting. So you know, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, as far as the plans go themselves and the one-ways and whatnot and the concerns up at Winthrop and Hancock Street, if I can just weigh in on a few things, and I apologize, I'm not looking directly at that. I have a map in front of me. Just so you know, you know, the best of my knowledge right now, it's 7:30 to 3:30. That is consistent with what we do at all of the other schools in town. We don't have it jump back and forth from one way to open, then back to one way and whatnot. Just, it's more for simplicity, and it keeps the expectations for the drivers clear. The line of traffic that you speak about, and believe me, I've worked at the crossing guards for a long time. I know it can get crazy up there, but you know, the school can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only people that should be coming down there now are the buses for the schools. Everybody else should be using the drop-off area, so you won't have those kindergarten, the pre-K kids coming down Winthrop onto Hancock anymore. The only thing coming down there is the buses. In terms of the buses, I know there was some problems in the past, and we used to have a crossing guard kind of help out with this, but you know, it looks like we're going to need some support from the schools, that when the buses got there, the buses used to sit and they'd put their flashes on even though the kids weren't you know, coming on or off the bus. And we used to have to kind of remind them, you know, shut those off so that traffic can get by. The amount of time that those lights should be on and people can't pass should be very, very short. It shouldn't be 20 minutes. It shouldn't even be 10 minutes. You know, so that's something that, you know, we as well as the school can look at to make sure that those buses are keeping those lights off until it's time to actually load and unload those buses. You know, and the only other thing I see with that is certainly we're going to need a lot of education from the schools out to those families to make sure that they're following those traffic patterns and they're well educated on that before September rolls around. The way it works right now, there's really no change to Boylston and Concord streets. Those have been one way all along. The Chauncey Street one way, that section of one way on Chauncey Street with the pickup and drop off being there, everybody getting in and out of their cars, and certainly in the wintertime when there's snowbanks and whatnot, we've had some congestion issues over there in the past. We've been very lucky with you know, some mild winters lately, but when we get a lot of snow, that road gets very, very tight. And safety-wise, we want to keep that a one-way, particularly during the day. So I hope those things help. I certainly can answer any other questions or anything I may have missed, but those are just some of the notes I made when folks were talking, and hope to be able to address a few of those items.
Okay, can I open it up to any of the traffic commission members for questions or comments?
Well, one of the things I wanted to say is they suggested maybe the 7 to 9 and the 2 to 4. I think that was on Winthrop Street. And I'm wondering if you think that would work, and if it would, is there any way to accommodate it? So that's really all I have to say on it.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I have a couple questions. And maybe part of it is the way it is now, but I'm not sure why you have to have quite so much of it all be one way. You know, is there a reason that the one way is as extensive as it is? Well, I guess I'll just ask another question. Also, because it is, you know, if you're proposing it as one way, as long as the school traffic was going in that circular direction, they're all going to be getting out and going to the right. Is there a reason that traffic couldn't pass on the other side? Is the kids aren't going to be going across the street. They're all going to be getting out and going into the school building.
My concern with traffic moving in the other direction is then it means that parents will also try to go in the other direction, and that they will inadvertently let kids off on the wrong side of the street, and then we'll be in a situation of trying to prevent kids from crossing the street. I think it would be dangerous, particularly along the side where we're doing drop and go, to have traffic in two directions.
We actually currently have that problem on Boylston Street, with families trying to drop off on Boylston Street and kids trying to dart across the street. So that was our concern with Chauncey Street also.
And if I may add to that, and I certainly agree 100% with the school, you know, with all of our schools, Mr. Magoon, we are in a constant battle with the parents. You know, they step right out of the car, so they're in the travel lane, and they also are opening the doors of the children on the travel side as well. Sometimes they have multiple children, they're getting out and we're constantly educating and trying to support them getting out on the sidewalk side. And as I said, it does get very, very congested. So you have those cars that are pulling over to drop off. You have other cars trying to get by them. And now when you add another set of vehicles going northbound on Chauncey Street, it would just create a nightmare. As I said, that is the only change to the current system of one-way streets right now. Concord and Boylston have been one-way all along.
And Sergeant Sampson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're actually not making any changes to the bus zone. We used to encourage, I know that it was never posted, but we used to encourage our parents that were dropping off at the preschool to come in on Winthrop and to take a right on Hancock. So now we've cut down, so we're going to strongly have staff there to make sure parents don't use that in the morning. So the only people coming down should be our 2 morning buses. And our staff have been working hard to try to get those buses unloaded and out of there in 5 minutes or less, but I can certainly keep working with them on that. And in the afternoon, we have 3 buses. We actually dismiss our bus kids a little early so that we can also get them in and out of there within 5 minutes, but we can certainly work with them again. But I know that anytime we had people dropping off down there, we always encourage them to go one way. Am I correct about that?
That is correct. That is always supposed to have been a one-way out. And I think, you know, the difficult part is unless we're down there enforcing, it becomes a game of cat and mouse. Correct. And what happens is a lot of, even the small transport vans that used to go down there, they'd go around your small cul-de-sac and then come up the opposite way. And, you know, we have a great crossing guard at the top of the street, you know, and they try to encourage and educate people to go the other way. But, you know, that's another battle that we're dealing with a lot. But the idea is the more consistency and a straight flow around the school we can get, the safest it'll be for the children.
So hi, this is.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I I'm listening to everybody, the residents, the schools, Sergeant Simpson, and I kind of agree with what everyone's saying. You know, Anne Marie, Maureen, I understand what you're saying as well. I think our number one priority is the school children, but I guess we're here now. So I'm trying to see if we can kind of just come to some kind of happy medium here to figure this out. You know, I too throw the question out there that Mr. Eurasian did about the 7 to 9, 2 to 4. Is that something that alleviates some of that? The other thing is too, this is temporary, right? While the construction's going on. So, you know, as the plans are made for the future, I think all these comments that are made today really need to be incorporated in those plans. That being said, you know, there's nothing against us trying something for the beginning of the year and see how it goes, and then maybe reassess it after a month. So I just kind of throw those out to everybody and see what people have to say on that.
So hi,
Perhaps
this is Anne Marie.
Sergeant Sampson could answer this. Sorry for the interruption. There's a delay. So what's the current state of Winthrop currently? Is that one way during certain hours currently? Or?
Normally what occurs is at the beginning of the school year, I'm sorry, at the beginning of the school day, the custodians have to go and put up a do not enter sign. And then that is supposed to stay up throughout the day and they take it down. What happens kind of over time that, you know, the sign gets hit, it gets ruined, and you know, there's many times it hasn't been up there. So, you know, I don't know what it was like just before school ended, but that's the way that was always supposed to work, is that those signs went up and they stayed up for the day. You know, that may have changed over time just because of the lack of a sign, but that was always the intent of that.
And during when that do not enter sign is up, I assume that does not apply to residents.
That's
and
correct.
When these are one way, so it's not. This isn't a case that entrance will be blocked. It may be delayed for people getting out of their homes, you know, because it's drop off time, but it's not a case that they can't leave during those times, correct?
No, that's correct. And in fact, the signage that we talked about really should say buses, staff, and residents only. And obviously that doesn't preclude visitors that are coming there or whatnot. The idea is the local traffic only during the school day, but there's nothing blocking anybody from gaining access to those areas.
So hi, this is Anne Marie, and again, 1416 Winthrop Street. And you know, I respect that you would want to try the 7 to 9 and 2 to 4. They seem like longer blocks of time if it's a 5-minute on and off load, but you know, trying it. And I just want to speak to the whole one-way component, even with the signs that are up there. We've had to reach out to the school many times and had visitors to the school completely disrespect, and others as well, disrespect our property with, again, making U-turns in our driveways, pulling in to our driveways, completely blocking them, parking over the crosswalks. And there isn't any repercussions to anybody. They just continue to do that. And so that is not managed at all. What I'll also add is, even when we talk about the school and supporting the neighborhood, let's talk about in the wintertime, right? And so even in the wintertime, the town only plows the sidewalks on the other side of the street from our homes. In front of all of our homes, we're responsible for those, even though many of the students and their families walk down those streets. That is not even acknowledged in any of this flow. When you take the plow trucks coming down in the wintertime, and now we're talking about one way and all this other impact, that the plow trucks plow everything into the front of our homes versus the other side of the street. So when we talk about, you know, community involvement and neighbor involvement, I'm also going to go back to the fact that it is really disheartening and feels, I didn't even want to use the word, but the fact that we have actively been involved and tried to participate in all of the activities related to our neighborhood and our lives related to the school, and to have this be slipped under after we, you know, I gave praise to the community presentation and felt that you know, everything was done in good faith. I don't feel like it's being done in good faith now. And I just want to say that out loud, because that's part of where you hear some of us being upset. And we would have liked to have voiced these and had the opportunity to not give up our time during the day and without scrambling to do this. But it doesn't make sense to have Winthrop be a one-way all day long that we can't take a right out of the driveways. Because if the buses are only coming in between 7 and 9 and 2 and 4, whatever the small time period is, there should be no reason that we can't take a right. I have had people in the past with the do not enter sign and crossing guards tell people that were coming to visit me that if they didn't live here, they couldn't come down the street, which I think there may be a legal issue with there, but I'll have to research that one more. I am concerned about access to my home. And while you say that there's only a certain period to go and take a left where the buses are there, it's still, you know, I don't think anybody should minimize the impact that it has on us. And that was my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, if I may, the only concern, even with the 2 to 4 and the 7 to 9, is residents getting out during those times are still going to get stuck behind a bus. So whether it's all day or those 2 times, it's when the buses are there. It doesn't sound like it's, I mean, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like it's the time as opposed to them not being able to go the other way on the street, unless I'm missing something. But even if we had it at 7 to 9 and 2 to 4 in the afternoon, that's the time the buses would be there, and that's when the congestion would be there. I mean, certainly, I think there's going to be I mean, if this goes through in any way, with this type of change to the school, I see an awful lot of enforcement, an awful lot of resources up there. No matter what comes out of this, you're going to see a lot of police presence up there, and I'm hoping for extra staff out there from the school as well to really get everybody, you know, going in the right direction. But you know, certainly this is something that we're going to commit to on our end as well, just to get everything going smoothly, and then we're going to have to stay on top of it. And Ms. Clunan, you're absolutely right. It seems like nothing gets done because it does become a game of cat and mouse, and that's the way it is at every school. U-turns in front of the Cunniff School, you know, people going through do not enter signs at the Lowell School, you know, people going the wrong way by the middle school. It's human nature, and it's something that we have to kind of stay on top of. But certainly, you know, whatever we can do to kind of make this work for everybody would be great. And it may be a matter that we you know, do something today and have to change it, you know, halfway through the school year. I don't know.
This is Jack Dargan. Can I say something?
Sure, Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I've lived here. It'll be 42 years pretty soon that we've lived here, and I never knew that Winthrop Street was a one-way at any time of the day. So either I'm stupid, which I may be, or there's no signage that tells you that. There's a sign, a temporary, like a horseshoe sign, like a sandwich sign, down in the corner of Hancock and Chauncey, and it's temporary. Like you said, it gets blown over. Up at the Lowell School, they have permanent signs. How is it that I didn't know in 40 years that I couldn't take a right out of my driveway during 2 periods of the day? And everybody takes a right out of their driveways. There's going to be a huge change here. It's not like, even if you kept it from 7 to 9 or 8 to 10 or whatever hours you keep it, we've always been able to take a right turn out of our driveways and go up to Mount Auburn Street. So there is going to be a huge change. And if you're going to make a change, we need permanent signage, not a sandwich sign out there. I mean, something that the janitor has to log out and log in 2 or 3 times a day. That's ridiculous. Up at the Lowell, they have permanent signs. Do not enter between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. It's a permanent sign. It's very clear. If you don't want people, if it ends up that we can't make a right turn out of our driveway, you should put a sign on the corner of Hancock and Winthrop Street that calls it a one-way, because there's no signage.
Great. Thanks, Jack. Would anyone else like to speak?
The superintendent has her arm raised.
Oh, I can't see all the, okay. Go ahead, Superintendent.
I've got both my virtual hand and my real hand. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I think are important. That, you know, the goal of this is to actually reduce pretty much all of the traffic through Winthrop and Hancock, except for buses, as opposed to previously, before the construction project, it was preschool, it was parents, it was buses, it was, everybody. And I agree with the fact that it was very hard to manage. The goal of the signage or the one way or whatever it ends up being for residents, buses, and staff only is we don't want any families using that as a way to get to the school. So, I think in the end, I understand that there's hard feelings around how this was rolled out. But in the end, I think a lot of the issues that, people on Hancock and Winthrop have had over the past will be mitigated by the fact that the only people coming through there are the buses and staff, and very limited staff at that. More important is making sure that the signage is clear that parents and families and everyone else really are not supposed to use that road at all. And so no matter what, I think there needs to be something, whether it's the 7 to 9 or 7:30 to 3:30, that's very clear about the purpose of Winthrop and Hancock for buses and staff and residents only. And I think we're going to end up with a lot less problems in the end.
Okay, do you know, what is the plan for the signage? Is there a plan for better signage down there?
Chief, if I may, I did speak to the development team about that, and we do use horses, and as Mr. Dargan said, unfortunately, Lowell School still uses a lot of horses as well, but we are moving towards permanent signage, and there should be permanent signage there. I did speak to the Department of Public Works about the fact that, whatever ends up going through, that these signs would have to be posted, and they should be MUTCD compliant signs.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak?
Chief, I have one question. So how many buses come there daily?
2 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon.
So in the most, there's 3 buses in the afternoon. If that's all that's coming around Winthrop, and that doesn't strike me as that impactful. And I know it's easy for me to say as opposed to the people that live there and have lived there for a long period of time, but 3 buses shouldn't be too dramatic. I think probably the bigger impact is the one-way going all the way around the school, which at least 2/3 of that's already been there. I guess one other thing I'd say is maybe encourage the schools to try, and, it seems to me that the way it's designed now is there's entrances to the school building all the way around the school building. And I'm sure that's to separate the classes and grades and such, but that also spreads out, the points where people are accessing it, where parents are dropping off, where they're stopping, and therefore, where you need to have one-ways, as opposed to making it more concentrated where it maybe limits that impact on some of the neighbors. So while I'm not suggesting a different alternative, but I think it would, that's something that needs to be weighed, and maybe there's a way you could more focus the entrance and exits from the school to minimize that. I don't know.
There are ways to do that. I would just point out that it conflicts with what we're trying to do around our COVID preparations in terms of spreading people out over distance. It's not impossible, and it's something we can think about, but that is another factor.
Right.
Well, and obviously, if you were going to think about it, it would only be if it made a significant difference.
Right.
Limiting one entrance, which still leaves all of it impact there, really wouldn't matter. So, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Okay.
And I'm sorry, this is Anne-Marie Clinamate. Just to add a comment based on what was just said.
Yep.
If there's only 2 buses in the morning and 3 buses in the afternoon, why are we limited as residents to not take a right out of our driveway and drive into that piece if the street's going to be blocked and the teachers aren't leaving and there's no other traffic that's coming down to drive 200 feet to the right? That would be my question.
Same thing occurred to me.
I think that's a good point. Maybe Winthrop and Hancock don't need to be one way.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, I'll let people weigh in. Did somebody make a comment earlier that then the parents start going up that way and that's not what you want it?
Well, this is Jack Duggan. They have narrowed Hancock Street at the corner because of construction. So I could see making Hancock Street inaccessible the way it is now. So we've never been able to use Hancock Street coming up from Chauncey in the morning and the afternoon. But as Anne Marie was just saying, I don't see any reason why we can't take a right out of our driveway if there's only 2 buses coming down there during the morning and during the afternoon. Seems like Hancock Street would be the issue. Coming up Hancock Street would be the issue. There is a bottleneck there now because of the fencing and the construction right at the corner of Hancock and Winthrop.
Dee Dee is raising her hand.
Go ahead. I see, I don't see the hands on for me, whoever could just coordinate for me, that'd be great. Go ahead, Superintendent.
So again, I'm just going to reinforce my point. I'm not as hung up over the one way or two ways. I'm most concerned with making sure that we keep out traffic that doesn't belong there, meaning non-residents and the like. So I'm not opposed to it being necessarily one or two ways or taking a right on Winthrop, but I just want to make sure, and I'd advocate more for the 7:30 to 3:30 signage that says nobody comes through here unless you're a resident or a staff member or a bus, and not worry so much about the one way or the two way. But I do agree. I didn't think about the Hancock issue, which, but Winthrop doesn't seem to have that same level of narrowness or bottlenecking.
Okay, I mean, is that a scenario then? 7 to 3:30, Hancock's a one way, but, Winthrop's not, and we assess it as it goes. I hear everybody's points in, and I agree with what a lot of people are saying, and we're kind of in the middle of trying to, have safety for the kids, but then, don't make it so unreasonable for the neighbors. So like I said, we could try this. I'm going to commit, Sergeant Sampson will commit our traffic division, our officers. I would ask the schools to commit some personnel to help us with that at the beginning of the year. And we try it. And we try it for a couple of weeks, and we touch base with Anne Marie and Jack and Maureen and see how it goes. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds more palatable to me than what initially came the proposal was. As long as we have do not enter signs at Hancock Street, so people don't come up Winthrop from Hancock, that would prevent Hancock. So anyone who's on Hancock Street, they would have to turn left. Anyone who's on Winthrop Street would have to turn right, because there is a bottleneck right there because of construction. As long as there's good signage, I think that would be manageable. And I think having it for the entire day, I agree. I think it's a better idea than having it for 4 hours a day.
Okay. Any other comments?
I would think it just makes sense to make Hancock and Winthrop, buses and local traffic only, and not worry about one way or not.
Well, I think there is an issue on Hancock, right, because of the narrowness of it. So I think that's why we talked about leaving Hancock a one way and then just not on Winthrop, but leaving it all day and limiting access to just faculty, residents, and buses. Sarge?
Chief, I'm just looking for some clarification because in my mind, I'm thinking signage, regulations, things along those lines that we'll have to submit and get approved through the town and get posted before school starts. So if we could just clarify what we want to do for Winthrop Street, and then what we want to do for Hancock Street, just so I can visualize it and understand it. As far as times, restrictions, things along those lines.
I think just from the conversations and stuff, and if you tell me if you hear something I say that doesn't work, because I do rely on you for a lot of this. So just listening to everyone talk, that to keep Hancock Street a one way, to not make blocks of time. It's 7 to 3:30 for faculty, residents, and buses only. But because there's only 2 buses in the morning and 3 buses in the afternoon, keep Winthrop Street a 2-way. So if residents of Winthrop Street can take a right and come out to Mount Auburn Street. Am I correct?
Yes.
By me, Jack Dargan here.
Yes.
With the intent that, you know, if we're up there and we start seeing problems with that, then we make an adjustment as we go.
Mhm.
Does that make sense to you, Sergeant?
It's getting there, sir. We're still
Only
gonna
an
need
earful after this.
Yeah, we're still gonna need signage at the top of Mount Auburn and Winthrop for buses, staff, and residents only, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And
So
it'll be-
basically, this scenario allows Anne Marie, Maureen, them to come out and take a right and not have to go around. You know, and we'll just see how it plays out. And
Okay, so with the one-way on Hancock, Mr. Dargan's gonna have to take a left.
yeah, Jack,
Well,
you go with that, right?
my driveway is actually on Winthrop Street.
Oh,
And we
perfect.
all, and we
Okay.
also have a 6-family building on Winthrop Street right at the corner. So there are 6 families there. There are 2 families at Maureen's place. There's another 2 families. There's probably a dozen families, maybe 14 families that live on Winthrop Street that right now take a right-hand turn, and they'll still be able to under this scenario.
Okay.
Hi, this is Anne Marie. My husband wants to say something. Frederick.
So if, you know, my name's Fred Clune, I live at 14 Winthrop Street. So my question is if there isn't going to be any family traffic or drop off or anything else, wouldn't it make sense to just put a do not enter sign at the end of both Hancock and Winthrop and say, only residents of this area can travel these streets during the day, and then leave it the way it is? There's no, if there's only 2 buses on one side of the street, why are we turning Chauncey Street even into a one-way? It just doesn't make any sense. If there's only going to be 2 buses there, why are we even talking about this right now? Because you're saying you don't want any traffic on the street, and then on the other hand, you're saying you want to protect the kids from the traffic. But if there's no kids there, what difference does it make? If there isn't any kids crossing that street on Chauncey, why? Just put residents only, school and residents only on the both sides of each street and be done with it. And then if the people that don't live on these streets use the road, you have to enforce that somehow. Or not. I mean, the teachers have been going out the wrong way of this for 27, I've lived here for 27 years. The teachers, there's signs at the end of each parking lot that say no right turn, no left turn, and they go opposite what that sign says. They've been doing it for 27 years. And there hasn't been any casualties around this area that I'm aware of as far as traffic accidents or anything else like that. I think that the crossing guards and the staff of the school has done a perfectly fine job of keeping that at bay and having no injuries. So I think it's just a whole bunch of do about nothing, because if you put a sign on both ends, that's permanent. I mean, a permanent sign for a temporary situation, I guess. Then people should abide by the sign and just not enter. That's how I feel about it. That's what I think. I don't know.
Chauncey Street's a drop-off area, so that has to remain a one-way because people will be coming down Chauncey, dropping off. So Chauncey can't really be a two-way from Hancock down to, so that's got to be a one-way.
But why does it have to be a one-way when it's not a one-way now? Or if it is a one-way, it hasn't been used in the past 27 years as a one-way.
No,
And
but
now
you're putting a drop-off over there now.
Yeah.
That drop-off, it's going to make a huge, huge difference to that section of the street.
That's been a drop-off for 27 years. That's all. The buses have always been there.
No, he's saying Chauncey Street, sir. Chauncey Street.
Oh, Hancock. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, on Hancock Street. I'm sorry. That's right.
Right, and it's not
So
the
what-
Go, Darren.
we're driving.
All right, Fred, I appreciate it, Fred, but I thought we were getting somewhere here and all on a scenario that worked.
Right.
So I'm not looking to start the process over. I think we were all kind of committed on that process.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just saying.
But hold on, let me finish. And let's, like I said, I think this is one of these situations. It's a temporary situation, but it's a long temporary situation that we're committed to work together on and try to figure out. So I think we heard what everyone had to say, and I think this is a reasonable solution. If everyone agrees or disagrees, that's fine. But I think we came to a reasonable solution and one that we can, you know, at least work off and make.
Right. Well, there's also two other houses on Hancock Street that haven't chimed in, that have driveways right across from that bus stop. But
Yeah.
I get it.
All right. Okay. Any other comments?
If Sergeant, if you've got that in a way that's understandable to you, I'm not going to try to restate it, but I'd move that we implement that traffic pattern as described.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is any new business. We have any new business? Hearing none. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Nice job, John Arazian. Your first time on Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you. Maiden voyage.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.